Hypergamy. The word is part of the common vernacular of the men's movement, though you'll find precious few people in the mainstream who know what it means. And however obscure its meaning may be to the average person, for the community of men daring to see themselves outside the box, it is a very important idea to understand. Today I'll talk about the importance of men getting this topic. That and a support message are coming up next on An Ear for Men. Hello everyone, Paul here. Welcome back to An Ear for Men. If you've been around the red pill world for any length of time at all, you've heard the term hypergamy. Defined literally, it's not a very complicated word. It means a woman marrying a man of higher caste or social status. Its counterpart word, hypogamy, describes women who marry beneath their means. Both of them. In our community, we look past the literal definition and use an expanded understanding of hypergamy to describe a range of behavioral traits that point to the natural inclination of women to pair bond their way to a better life. Hypergamy, when we are thinking about it from the neck up, is a constant reminder of what we are confronted with in women. Hopefully, in the fog of sexual attraction and emotional infatuation, it helps us see women's proclivities and motivations more clearly. It's important to note here that hypergamy, in the red pill definition, is about a lot more than money and personal power. And by that, I mean it is about a lot more than what a woman is attracted to in men and who she is inclined to marry, because women don't just marry up. They also fuck up. In the realm of sociobiology, that points to cuckoldry as a manifestation of hypergamy. Allow me to mansplain this a little, if you will. A woman finds herself a nice doctor or lawyer. He works hard, brings home the bacon, treats her with respect, doesn't hit her, he doesn't drink excessively, gamble money away, or cheat on her. Most men, including those that pride themselves on having a good understanding of women, will look at this situation and see a woman disinclined toward infidelity. After all, she has it completely made. She comes from a good family, she has an abundant, even cushy home life, generous income that he works for, everything she could ever want, all the way down to a massive walk-in closet full of nice clothes. He does everything for her. No way she would cheat, right? Wrong. Women are most commonly driven to marry this kind of man for the security he can provide. That does not mean at all that those men are what women really desire sexually. Who she marries and who she longs to part her legs for are often different men. Some women will, in fact, restrain the desires fueled by sexual hypergamy. Many will not. And this is how the cuckold is born. In the low bar, I've linked to an article from New York Times Magazine that reveals 30% of men who pursue paternity tests because they are suspicious of the outcome find out their suspicions were warranted. Think about that. 30%. Nearly 1/3 of all men who suspect something is rotten on the home front turn out to be right. And what about all the men who never suspect and never test? Are we really to imagine that the only cuckoldry going on is the men who wise up and start digging into the genetics? What kind of world shaking would be going on right now if every father in the world sought confirmation of their paternity? How many men would we find out are going into offices, climbing behind the wheels of semis, driving squad cars, or walking into coal mines every day to pay for the care of offspring that are not their progeny? How many men are now divorced, taking what is left of their paychecks after the courts garnished them into poverty, all for a child or children they did not father? And that is just the financial consequences. The New York Times Magazine article cited playwright August Strindberg, who explored this topic well over 100 years ago. And I quote from the article here. "The Father is the story of a cavalry captain whose wife hints that he might not be the father of the daughter he so adores. Consumed with doubt, he rages at his wife. I have worked and slaved for you, your child, your mother, your servants, because I thought myself the father of your child. This is the commonest kind of theft, the most brutal slavery. I have had 17 years of penal servitude and have been innocent." Unquote. Now, I really appreciated Strindberg's penetrating awareness. He recognized that his protagonist was indentured to the house's servants as much as he was to the family that resided there, possibly even a child that was not his. 30%, guys. 30%. And all because women are wired to better deal themselves on everything in life, with the possible exception of their professional lives. More on that in a moment, but first, I'm going to pause to bring you an important message about this channel. An Ear for Men is dedicated to entertaining and inspiring men of all ages to rethink their place in the world. With 2 generations of men now conditioned to hate themselves, to see themselves and each other as toxic and inferior, I think it's an important effort. One of my commenters recently asked me how much it costs to produce each one of these videos, citing that PragerU informs their audience that each of their efforts has a $50,000 price tag. Well, I don't have all their high-end graphics, videographers, and sound engineers. Everything here is a one-man show, but it represents the very best I can do with what I have to work with. If I count the time investment at minimum wage and the equipment and software I use, my cost per video ranges from $400 to $600, sometimes a little more. In other words, about a tenth of what PragerU spends without the misandry and shame sandwiches they force-feed their male viewers. Currently, I have 40 backers on Patreon who pledge a total of $190 per video. Their pledges range from $1 to $25 per video. I'm very grateful for this support and want to take this moment to thank those 40 people for parting with some hard-earned cash to help me keep this effort up. That being said, I am still operating at a loss with each one of these I produce. That's why every quarter at the change of season, I make an appeal for your support through Patreon or through one-time donations. The big upside on the per video pledges versus a monthly donation on Patreon is that it puts the onus on me to produce. If I don't produce, you don't contribute. I am committed to 2 videos per week, even if I'm not able to keep that pace up all the time. For those who'd rather not pledge to Patreon, I also accept one-time donations through the link provided in the low bar. Please feel free to use that option for any amount if you think what I have already produced has earned your support. With that, I will now take you back to my talk on hypergamy and cuckoldry, with my thanks to all of you for supporting this important work for men and boys. Welcome back, everyone. Today, I'm talking about hypergamy and cuckoldry. Before the break, I was exploring how hypergamy plays a role in sending women outside their marriages for more sexually exciting adventures. And as many of you know, the psychological underpinnings of that drive in women is part of reproductive strategy. Women are wired to reproduce. The drive in them to snag security, money, and power through men are just expressions of the same basic biology. While I'm not a rigid determinist, and I don't have much patience for them, you can't deny the role of biology in leading women to select powerful, successful men that can provide the protection and provision seen to be beneficial to long-lasting reproductive success. In the same light, once that protection and provision has been corralled and controlled, it still makes sense that women would seek out and mate with physically superior male specimens, and even be willing to allow the duped dad to believe a big fat lie if it serves her biological mandate. More telling information is hidden in plain view in marriage statistics. The average marriage lasts 8 years, and most often, of course, women file for divorce. Couples tend to wait a minimum of 2 years before having children. That points to the possibility that most divorces are initiated shortly after children start school, when the mother suddenly finds she has a lot more time on her hands, and just as the father's income is starting the ascent toward peak. Now, as I often try to point out, none of this is stated to demonize women. Men have their own biological peccadillos, including some number of men who are married and keep producing children with other women to whom they're not married. All the moral judgments aside, though, men who lean toward viewing women through the rose-colored glasses of romantic love, which is most of them, tend to remain clueless till the DNA results are in. And that is if they are both smart enough and fortunate enough to get the test. As Carnell Smith of PaternityFraud.com said at ICMI 14 in Detroit, and I quote here, "DNA should mean do not ask, because it is now illegal to even get a test, and if you get a test without the mother's permission, you will be criminally prosecuted." Unquote. And it is not the test that even matters in most cases. There are 36 states in the U.S. that won't relieve duped dads of child support even if they can prove the child is not theirs. To me, this is more evidence of the biological and social impetus behind hypergamy. It is a force strong enough to have resulted in state-sanctioned cuckoldry. Women want to better deal themselves, and we give it to them. I said earlier that one area where women tend not to better deal themselves is employment. The evidence supporting that, and even citing it as a reason for the earnings gap between men and women, is cited in the low bar. Of course, I'm just speculating here, but it occurs to me that salary negotiation is part of the protector-provider skill set. Or, to be blunter, women tend not to negotiate salaries very well because in the lens of reproductive success, they don't have to. The way women garner most of their resources is not through direct acquisition. It is through exploiting the production of resources in others, namely men. They do it through the social paradigm that puts the financial onus on men to use their resources to attract women. They do it through political support of entitlement spending. They do it through divorce, and they do it through cuckoldry. Hypergamy drives all of it. Of course, it's up to you what you want to do with this information. I personally never let it drive me into isolation, but I don't have any harsh words for men that go that route. Whatever you do, guys, don't be a part of the 30% or in the unknown quantity of men who will never know. You deserve, and have always deserved, much better than that. And that is it for another Talk from an Ear for Men. I hope you've enjoyed, even if it pisses you off, and see you next time.